Okay, there we have it. Okay. Beautiful.
Blank in the printer. With lines or?
Can you all guys see me okay? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, beautiful.
Oh!
Okay, almost there. Another 5 minutes to go. We've got 3 nice lady over here.
Yep.
Very nice. So what we're going to do in 4 minutes, we're going to start the first presentation. We've got 3 presentations to go through, and then at the end of each presentation, if we can, we're going to go and we're going to try and answer all the questions you may have about that presentation, and then at the very end, then if you have any other questions that are not related to that, then we can run other presentations if we have them ready. Say for example, we've got a question here about what is plasma, was it called that way? So I think we've got a presentation on that. So what we may do is just run that and then try to cover that topic at the end. So we're going to be here as long as we possibly can to try and answer all your questions, any doubt that you may have, and hopefully you're going to find it quite interesting and helpful. Three minutes to go. So let's get that's fine. Seems as if it's working there.
Daniel. Are you able to hear me?
Very well.
Very well. Okay.
So, are you located in Canada? Where are you located?
Yes.
Oh, good. So where are we here? 1, 2, 3. That's me. Okay. We only got 3. And the time has started. We've got in the 20 people that signed up, so we only got 3 participants at the moment. So if that's okay, we're gonna wait a little longer. The first presentation almost there. We record this event for anyone to who have signed up for this.
You sound a little muffled to me.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay.
Okay. Is it muffled at the moment?
Yeah, still a little bit. It's just not clear.
I can hear you perfectly clear, but your
Yeah.
voice, Andrea, is muffled for me as well.
It's muffled. Is it still muffled?
No.
Okay. Hopefully the connection is going to get better. So just shut down
Okay.
a few programs here. Hopefully that. 1, 2, 3. Don't save. And get as many programs shut down as possible. Just shut this down. That is not needed. So look what we've got. Yes, a CPU. So they're overloaded. Then better, CPU is better. That is not needed either. Close this one. Okay, we're going to start closing a few. This one is going to close, that's it. Google Hangouts, that's fine, we're going to exit that. Go to VPN. We're going to open companion up. Okay. Okay. Can you still hear me okay? We're gonna start right now. Sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Beautiful. That's the first presentation. We're gonna start with another one first. See what we got. So start with that. Oh. Slideshow. Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Beautiful. So we're gonna start right now. Now we made this presentation because we have we have the same sort of question over and over again, which is how deep does your device go into the skin? Now, and this is why we made this presentation, and then we're very likely we're going to make another webpage on voltaicplasma.com to explain that in detail. The problem is that what happened is that the especially at the beginning, a number of companies have to. So I wonder whether we can actually get this background noise out. Sorry to interrupt this. See what I can actually get. I'm going to. That's it. Okay, I cannot hear you right now, so it's maybe better for the recording here. Now, I'm going and gonna go and view slideshow. So what I've done in here is I've just muted the sound so that it's not going to be a problem when I'm explaining things, and then I'm going to put it on once I'm finished with this slideshow. Now, so we're going to understand what the effects on the skin of plasma are in terms of depth. This is see whether we're going to go back. So let's just explain. So what happened is, especially at the beginning in 2010, when this was started to be promoted, especially in Italy. This was promoted in Italy to start with, 4 doctors only. And what a company has done, they have produced a number of, especially one, it's not a case study, it's an actual study on a particular device claiming that they were able to ablate the only outer layer of the skin and without affecting the dermis. And that is a bit misleading because as we'll see, including that device, I'm actually going to call it with his name, which is Plexa. Even that device, even the white one, has the capability of ablating inside the dermis and even going inside well inside the dermis up to the bone if you actually go and ablate the skin for long enough. So what is the motive of making this this intentional confusion? Because basically when you're using voltaic arcing, what happens is that if you have the arc on a certain point for long enough, you're going to cause a hole inside of it. And we have made a video on this particular topic, but we only touched it once on a particular video. So maybe we're going to make other videos to emphasize on this point. Now, and that was done in order to promote it to doctors, but now the situation is completely different, and basically it is quite clear that it's only a marketing exercise. So basically, if you have any arcing device that is used for aesthetic purposes, which has an ablating effect, you're able to actually go even very deep. Not only due to the power of the device, but how long we keep the arc on at any point. And that is what we're trying to explain here. So now, this is something that maybe you have seen already. This is electrofulguration here on the right, which is electrical arcing. So electrical arcing or plasma is something that was used and is still used in surgery and in dermatology to ablate skin tags or remove sometimes tumors. And that it works actually quite superficially. Also, we've got electrodesiccation. In the electrodesiccation, the configuration of the device is a bit different. And what electrodesiccation is normally used for in aesthetics and is being used for this particular application for a number of years is for red vein coagulation. so those red veins on the nose that are caused by excessive drinking over a long period of time or similar. Now, this is a picture that which I'm sure you've actually seen before, and what basically we want to explain with this picture is that you can act on this particular part of the skin if you want, using electrical arcing, even at high power, almost without affecting the dermis or the upper dermis. However, as we've explained in other videos, there is always a certain amount of heat that is propagated inside the dermis. Now, if you use the electrical arcing device for long enough, what is going to happen is that you are going to ablate, actually you're going to destroy tissue up to whatever level you want. So if you keep the arc here for long enough, say for example for 3 seconds or 4 seconds, you're actually going to go deeper, deeper, deeper. Which is what you're doing when you're removing moles using electrical arcing. You're keeping the arc on the mole for long enough so that it's completely destroyed and burnt. So if you keep the same arc on the skin on the same point, despite the power level that you're using, you're going to cause a hole because you're going to destroy tissue. So you can actually go up inside the dermis and even further. So that is quite an important point to emphasize. Now, the claim is that, say for we've just taken this from a very reputable company when they actually try to sell the treatment. And it goes this way. This beam, which is the eye, generates heat and causes sublimation. The word sublimation is just to make it more appealing to people who are reading or listening to it. So they don't understand, so they think something very out of this world. So it's good for marketing. Of the outermost part of the epidermis, outer layer of the skin, without damage to the surrounding or deeper structure of the skin. In doing so, the tissue underneath is protected from heat whilst the surface of the skin contracts and heals in order to effect results. Now, the English is not particularly good, and it's actually really backed by scientific papers. And this is actually true. They actually wrote scientific papers to prove that. This is quite interesting. So obviously, if you want to sell devices to doctors, you need scientific papers. So what people normally do, they have interest to prove certain points, and doctors are even ready, because there's a lot of money into it. They're even ready to back some sort of scientific papers which are quite questionable. We actually got it, but we're not going to actually show it because it's a bit pointless in our opinion. But this is quite important. So the point we're trying to make with this slide is that no matter what device you're using, you can act on, you're going to go onto the epidermis, onto the dermis, upper dermis, or the dermis itself, or hypodermis, depending on how long you are keeping the arc for. So that is the main point we're trying to give in this presentation. Now, it's just another of the another picture that we always normally show in our presentations, which is really electrical arcing was used and is still used for electrocoagulation in the operating room. And this is a picture that's been taken from that, from the scientific papers about the use of electrical arcing for electrocoagulation. Now, now another very interesting selling point that we found on the market is that the amazing auto extinguishing arc claim, which is actually true. So it is said that the arc auto extinguishes itself if you touch the skin. Now, with our device, and other devices, including the Plexer White, if you actually do that, it does really, there's no arc at all. But another thing that they're actually not saying to you is that even if you're touching the skin, there's no arc, the heat is quite intense. So what's happening here is that the voltage between the tip of the device, of the electrode, and the skin is not high enough so that when the tip of the device is touching the skin, it doesn't cause any arc because the voltage is too low. So when you touch it, when you touch the skin, there's no arc. However, you do still have an intense heat feeling. So you're actually feeling a bit of discomfort in the zone. It's a bit painful anyway. So if you touch the skin using the tip of them, also the other point is that if the voltage is low enough, when you touch the skin using the tip of the device, the voltage will drop. So there's not going to be any arc. The arc is going, if the voltage is actually quite high anyway, the arc is, even if you touch the skin, the arc will still be there and will still actually do its job. And with our device, with the BeautyTech, if you use it at the highest power level, what happens is that when you touch the meat or the skin, it's actually going through the meat or the skin like we're talking about butter, using like it is as if you're actually using a knife a hot knife in butter, so it actually goes through it quite quickly and very easily. So this happens because again, if the voltage is high enough, then the arc does not extinguish and you actually inflict an interesting wound into the skin if the voltage is high enough. But if the voltage is low, then when you touch the skin using the tip of the device, it is as if the arc auto extinguishes. Actually, the energy is still put inside this valve. It's still there, and you actually feel it onto your skin. So this claim, I mean, it's about the claim of that arc only affects the epidermis and not the dermis. It's true, but it's not true at the same time. The main neglected piece of information is that nobody talks about the duration of the arc, because if the duration of the arc is long enough, you can actually go inside the skin as much as you want. You can actually even reach the bones and cause quite interesting injuries. So this is a piece of information nobody really talks about so far, and we wanted to touch this information. So remember, the duration of the arc is very important. So if you keep using the arc for long enough, then you're going to cause a hole. Always remember, say for example, when you're removing a mole, all you're doing is that you're keeping that arc on the mole for long enough so you're actually going to burn it. So it's the same thing that you're doing on the skin. And obviously, this piece of information is neglected on purpose in order to try and make these devices sort of unique. And we already told you what this missing piece of information is. We actually revealed the secret beforehand. And the reason for this for some information given by companies. So one of the reasons why we're not hiding any information, actually putting everything that we can on the internet and for everyone to see, is that because people are trying, because it's a very competitive market, people are trying to get the edge. So, say for example, if we are organizing a training seminar, and we're trying to lock out other people from selling their devices, or we're trying to discourage people from looking into competitive devices, we're going to try and get this misleading information in order to close off possible competitors. So if you go to these events, they're going to try and convince you that they've got a unique device, it's absolutely amazing, what they do, no one else does. But then what you find as well is that all that information is there at the event, and they don't put any information out for anyone to see. And the reason is that many times is misleading information which people are quite reluctant to put out there in the public domain, which is the contrary to what we do. We do the complete opposite. We're actually trying to give you as much information free of charge so that you can learn as much as possible from our knowledge. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to get back to us. Now, if you're not from the UK, you may not know what happens here in the UK. In 2014, a company introduced plasma as a patented product, which obviously it sort of was, but the patent is quite ridiculous. And they promoted this device for doctors' use only. So again, that was backed up by all the scientific papers, sort of scientific papers, which very little scientific. What they're trying to do is just find excuses to make this device unique. And what happened then, because this is a very competitive market, other people, including ourselves, then came into the market and told the truth. And now these devices in the UK are used not only by doctors, but estheticians or aesthetic practitioners who are not doctors. That is what happened. So plasma is mysteries. So going back to what is plasma, one of the reasons for it to call it plasma is to make it quite intriguing. So you say, well, what is plasma? So it's quite a good selling point from that point of view. So it's quite easy to sell it if you call it plasma, because it confuses people. But plasma, what it is an electrical arc, and it is a spark. That's what it is. So when you see a spark or a piece of lightning, it's plasma. Plasma is when the gas are ionized into the air or other mediums, and that ionized gas behaves like a short circuit. Now, so the piece of information that's been ignored, going back to see whether I can actually go back here, in order to claim that the arc or the plasma only acts onto the epidermis, is the duration of the arc. Why? As I said before, and I want to repeat it, is in order to confuse the audience. That is, so you confuse the audience, you try to embellish the story and say that it is the only device that is working on the epidermis only, without any effects of the dermis and so on. One of the claims is that without any unwanted, so the arc takes place without any unwanted spread heat inside the dermis or the surrounding tissue, which is actually not true, because if you have performed this type of treatments, what you'll see is that the area will swell up, especially if you do an upper eyelid type one. So it's actually not true. The power of the arc is almost irrelevant if the duration of the arc is too long. So what we're trying to say here is that, remember, one of the most important parts of electrical arcing is the duration of the arc. The power of the arc is important, but it's not that important, because if you have a quite intense arc, an arc that is quite powerful, a high voltage, then you can counteract it by having the arc to last for only for a very short period, a fraction of a second. So you may even be able to get away with it. But you want to use devices that have a very low power setting, the devices that have a very low voltage at the lowest power setting. This is what we've got in the Beauty deck. Any arc, including the smallest, does get into the dermis or can reach the actual bone if applied long enough. And we have a video on this when we are actually ablating a piece of chicken. So that is, and then this, I love this picture because again it's trying to confuse people. The plasma thing. But remember what plasma is an electrical arc, is lightning, is a spark. That's what plasma is. When the gas are ionized in the air, or when, I mean, in order to be more general, but it's actually completely pointless, when the voltage in any particular medium is so high that the medium, even plastic, becomes aconductive. So this is when plasma occurs, when an ionization or a voltage or a breakdown of the insulation takes place. So, but we've got more information on that on voltageplasma.com, but that's not very important. So that's the end of this particular presentation. We're going to switch on the audio again. We're going to go back to our Hangout. See whether we will be on there. So we're going to stop screen share. Beautiful. So we reached the end of the first presentation. Have you heard it completely? Have you heard it okay?
Yes.
Good. Any questions?
Yep.
So my only question is plasma and arcing. So electrofulguration, that still arcs.
Yes.
So do you get the same result?
Okay. I'll go and... So let's see whether I understand. So please repeat the question again.
Okay, so for electrofulguration units, you still get an arc.
Yes.
Do you get the same result as plasma?
Okay. Now, I think I understand what you're saying and why you're asking that question. So what you're asking is, electrofulguration units and plasma are the same? And if so, are you getting the same result? Is that question that you're asking?
Yes.
Good. So if this is the question, I'll try and give you the scientific question, the scientific answer as unbiased as possible. Remember, we're always a bit biased. So it is actually the same thing. So you call it electrofulguration, you call it electrical arcing, you call it plasma, whatever you want to call it, is the same phenomenon. It's the same thing with different names. Also, they call it in Europe fibroblast, that is only is a trade name for a device. So remember, when we're talking about plasma, electrofulguration, fibroblast, is always the same physical phenomenon, which is a spark, an electrical spark. So if you've seen a lightning or an electrical spark, This is what plasma is. This is what electrophotoration is. This is what fibroblast is. This is what the Beauty-Tech does, and so on. Now, the effects, if the design, now we're going to get into an area where we can have some conflict of interest. And I want to be clear about that. So now, from a legislation point of view, if you're buying a device, you have to use it according to the manufacturer's instructions. So if you have an electrophotoration unit for the operating theater, and it does not say that you can use it on the skin for eyelid tightening, you must not, because you're putting yourself under certain liabilities. The likelihood of the liability are quite high, the insurance could be void. Said that, that doesn't mean that it would not work. And remember, every device is designed differently. So they may have a different, what do you call it, frequency of operation. They may have different voltages. They may work at DC or AC. There's a number of things to take into account. So the point is, I'm trying to make, and then I'm going to ask you whether I've answered your question, because I want to make sure I'm answering your question as well as possible, is that if you're using a device that the manufacturer does not specify the particular use that you're making it for, so if, say for example, you're buying an example of an electrical acting device that is not for aesthetic uses. I'm just trying to think about one. I can't really think of, oh yes. What do you call it? A lighter that uses arcing to ignite the fire. And there are a number of them. That is not, the manufacturer uses that spark in order to light the fire, not to do any treatment on the skin. That doesn't mean that it would not work. I'm not saying it would, I'm not saying it wouldn't. I'll say I would not take the risk, especially if I'm running a business. If you're using, say for example, a hyfricator, the ConMed device, ConMed does not say in the operation manual that you can use it for eyelid tightening. Therefore, if you used it for that application, it could possibly work, it could possibly give you the result you want, but you're using something that is intended for another use on the eyelids. So hopefully I've answered your question. See whether I got it right. So did I answer the question?
That would be an issue with insurance then. Correct. Because I have a supercricator, and I've been playing around with it, and it does good. I got permission from my state board that because it's a class 1 device that we can use it. They specifically state we cannot use plasma in our state. It's considered they put it under the laser laws. So would your device, because it says plasma, fall? That's where I'm kind of stuck.
Beautiful. We're going to make, actually, this is a topic in this particular training. We have a presentation on that, on making the clear distinction between laser devices and plasma. And we're going to also make a web page on this particular topic because there are different things. But this standpoint, there are different things, and we're going to demonstrate it here to some extent.
Yep.
So we're going to touch
You got really muffled, I can't hear you.
Okay. Now, the difference between plasma, electrical arcing, electrophotoration devices, and light emitting devices, i.e. lasers, we're going to talk about it today. We've got the third presentation we've got ready, I think it's the second actually. Actually the next one I think, if I remember well, yes, because we've got the other one on top of the wall. It's actually going to touch about that. I think it's the next presentation.
Perfect.
Any other question?
Yes. When the duration of the arc is too long, can you make the scars on the skin? How can you help then the person?
Okay. Yes, indeed. You can actually cause very serious injuries. And unfortunately, so far, and we're going to change that hopefully very soon, this is something that you have to, it is under your complete control. So one of the things that we ask all our clients who buy our device or rent our devices in the UK and so on, is to do is to practice on the on chicken or on a piece of meat. The reason is because so you understand the effect of electrical arcing, and then when you're actually going to do it on real people, then you know how long you can keep the arc for and so on. But if you are keeping the arc on for too long, you're going to cause a scar after the healing if you have damaged the dermis or the hypodermis. Whenever the scar occurs normally in two particular instances, if damage is being caused to the dermis or hypodermis, and that is normally caused through, well, when you go under knife with an operation, if you have an injury due to an accident, then the injury is so deep, and when you heal up, you're going to have a scar if the injury was inside the dermis. Actually, the dermis was affected. Or if the injury or the wounds is superficial but an infection takes place, then you can have a scar as well, because the infection damages the dermis, and then you have the scar is normally a hypertrophic scar normally due to the infection that has taken place. So you can cause scars in two ways using electrical arcing. One, if you go too deep inside the skin. Two, if an infection occurs after the treatment. Did I answer your question? Did I answer your question?
And when the scars occur, what is the solution? How do we make the scars off?
Okay.
What to say client when the scars occur?
So ask me the question again. So I want to make sure I understand it.
When the scars is there, how can we help the client?
Okay. Now, there's two types of scars that you can cause by using electrical arcing improperly, or if an infection has taken place. One is the hypertrophic scar, and the other one is an atrophic scar. If it's a hypertrophic scar, the best thing to do, and it's actually quite easy to sort it out, is just wait for a couple of months or 3 months to let that scar settle in, because especially at the beginning it's going to be quite, always remember, hypertrophic scar, not a keloid, okay? So always make that distinction, because if it's a keloid, it's something different. If it's a hypertrophic scar, then you want to wait for 3 months or so, and then use the spray technique to level off that hypertrophic scar, to try and reduce its appearance. Also using electrical arcing, which is one of the best ways. So that's a way to that you can do it. You can do it quite effectively that way. If it's an atrophic scar, situation is a bit different. Then I think I'm going to take a note of that, and then we're going to make a presentation on this for the next event. So I have to remember to talk about how to try and alleviate atrophic scars. There's ways, but they're not always easy and nice, but they're more complicated. Did I answer the question? Did I answer your question?
Yes, the hypertrophic scars occur when the arc was too long. When we make hypertrophic scar when the duration of the arc was too long.
Okay. So I'm going to get, okay, you've got two main causes of a hypertrophic scars. Two. One, the arc caused a damage inside the dermis. So the damage is so intense in the dermis that during the healing process, then there's an overgrowth of collagen, and that causes a hypertrophic scar. Second one is if there's an infection soon after the treatment, and that if that infection is quite important, then you can get hypertrophic scar. So you've got two main causes of hypertrophic scars.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other question?
Yes, what can cause such an infection after that treatment to cause that scar?
Okay. Now, when we're going to actually talk about that in tattoo removal as well, but when you are applying, now remember, when you're removing a mole, which you can do with arcing, you are ablating the skin, you are destroying the skin. So what happens when you destroy the skin? You have a wound. When you have a wound, W-O-U-N-D, if the area is not clean enough, it's not disinfected properly, and it's subject to bacterial infections, you get an infection. So if you have a wound, because what you're doing using electrical arcing, you're doing two things. You're causing a wound into the skin to some extent, and you're causing a burn at the same time. Doing two things. So due to the wound part of the treatment, the area that you have treated is particularly susceptible to infections. And if the area is not disinfected or is a bit dirty, it could get infected. Just for the record, so far nobody has reported any infections on upper eyelid tightening or skin tightening as such. And the only ones that have been reported is after tattoo removal. These are they've been reported a number, not many, but a number have been reported. So once again, what causes infections is whenever you're performing a plasma treatment, you're causing a wound onto the skin, even if it's small, is a wound, and you're also causing a burn. You're causing two things, wound and burn. And the wound part of it, if the area is not taken care of properly, you can get an infection. One source of infection is the use of makeup. We recommend never to use any makeup up until the scab is formed, or better, up until the scab is formed and falling off on its own accord. Did I answer your question?
It prompts me to ask more questions. Yes, it did. And that is, one, how do we best prepare the skin and the instrument to avoid possible infections? And do we apply makeup about a week after the treatment, as you said, you have to wait for the scabs, and usually that's around a week, roughly. I just want to make sure that I got that clear.
Okay. Now, the best way to avoid infections is by a correct aftercare. From your point of view, all you have to do is make sure that the tip of the device is sterile, it is clean, and then after treatment you're going to apply an antiseptic and off you go. Throughout the healing progression, there's nothing you can do. It's up to the client to make sure that they perform a good job, they take care of the part, so that no scars are going to no infections will make up. Now, when to make up, the rule that we suggest is avoid any makeup. The use of any makeup is just like something to be your enemy. The makeup up until the scabs are formed and fallen off on their own accord. That can happen, normally happens within 5 to 7 days after treatment, depending on how the treatment was carried out and the healing progression. But the rule is, you can apply makeup after the scabs have fallen off. After the scabs, if any, have fallen off completely. So there's no any possibility of infection. The problem with makeup is that even the mineral makeups are packaged in a way so that you put your finger in there, your finger may be a bit dirty, or even if it's very clean, there may be some bacteria in there. You cannot actually control that as much. You put your finger in there, and after a month, then that bacteria is actually grown in that piece of mineral makeup. So you're better off not to avoid the use of any cover-up makeup as much as possible, unless the makeup is manufactured in a sterile fashion and is packaged in a way that when you use it, when you put it on your skin, it's not going to compromise the makeup that you still have in the packaging. But in order to make sure that nothing will go wrong whenever you do any treatment, we advise on people never to use makeup up until the scabs are formed and fallen off. Did I answer your question? Was I clear enough? Or
yes, you were clear. It does. How do you personally like to sterile the machine, the needle rather?
No, using an autoclave. An autoclave is a very good way. So you put it in alcohol and then you put it on an autoclave. That's the best way. We also have the sterile needles, but yeah, an alcohol and then an autoclave. The autoclave is something is approved in the UK. Whenever the health inspector comes and sees the autoclave and can read your sterilization procedure on your manual and finds that you have to put everything onto the autoclaves, inside the autoclave and autoclave, then they're happy.
I have a question.
Thank you so much.
Hello?
Yes, please.
So I'm just going back to the makeup. So what you're saying about the makeup, it's not the makeup itself that causes the infection. It's that it will increase the risk of bacteria being in the product that can then cause the infection.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Correct. And there's another point. Not only that, but also even if the makeup is quite good and there's not any much bacteria in there and there's no infection, a clear infection, you're causing occlusion onto a wound. So every time we're using arcing, then we are causing a wound onto the skin. And then if you put makeup, you're actually occluding that wound. So this is one of the reasons why, even if there's no infection, one of the reasons why we don't recommend to use even mineral makeups. The problems that we've seen after skin tightening using plasma on the face, eyelids, lower eyelids, anywhere, mainly was after people have used cover-up makeup, including mineral makeup. Whereas when people haven't used any makeup, healing was very fast, pretty much zero problems. One of the problems you get, especially if you use makeup, is where you have applied the dots, then normally a little bit pinker than the rest of the skin. That can actually last for a number of weeks, if not months. So it's a good idea never to use any makeup, and suggest to your clients never to use any makeup after treatment.
I have a question. Soothing cream after treatment, is this possible or not?
Yes, indeed it is possible, and it's a very good idea to use them. The main problem with soothing product is the same as above. They've got to be sterile, because you're applying it onto a wound. So if you apply a soothing product after a laser treatment, again, you're actually, depending on the laser, say for example, CO2 laser, you're actually causing a wound onto the skin. Then yes, you've got to make sure that a soothing product is completely sterile. So if it's completely sterile, then it shouldn't be a problem. It's a good idea to use a good soothing product and make sure it's completely sterile.
What do you consider a soothing cream? What is the product that is a soothing cream?
There are a number of products out there. We also sell them. One of the most popular is aloe vera, but there is a number of them. Say the aloe vera, I think it's something that you find also on an active ingredient that you find out in the after sun creams. Then I think will make us have to actually write down something about the soothing products, because it's a good, something that we get asked a number of times. So I'm going to make a note here. So soothing products. Okay. What are they? Okay. So I have to make sure we make a presentation on that, and what you find, what the active ingredients are on soothing product. One is aloe vera, that I remember off the top of my head, and the other one is Physalis angulata, which is one of the active ingredients which we've got in one of our products. Just a second, let me just go. Okay, yes. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Oh, so for the aftercare, since we're talking about aftercare, the client is to keep it cleansed with an antiseptic a few times a day?
Yes, namely once or twice a day, once in the morning and in the afternoon. In terms of make sure you use appropriate antiseptics, because some of them are a bit aggressive, so it can cause skin problems later. Any other questions?
I have a question, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, and this is the last question, and we're going to go on to the next presentation. We've got another 2 to go. So, please.
I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes.
This is Brenda.
Yes.
I have a question. Can you measure the results of the skin tightening? So, in other words, what can we expect to see in measurable results from, say, treating eyelids?
Okay. Measuring the results is quite a difficult thing. what you normally do if an upper eyelid tightening is performed correctly, what you see after a few months and what you notice is that your eyelids don't feel as heavy when you're tired as you used to feel. That's one of the things. And you actually normally see less creases onto the upper eyelids. So that is one of these things. I mean, it's quite difficult to actually measure as such using tools. I think again, hopefully we'll see whether we've got to. I'll have to think about this particular question and see whether we can actually make something. Can think of something in order to address this particular question. But it's something that's very difficult and so quite subjective. We've done many, and I had it done on myself as well, and very happy with it. When I was 33, I'm now 38. My eyelids felt a bit heavy after the first treatment. 4 to 5 months after, I felt much better. And then I'm 38 and they look really, really light compared to what they were when I was 33. But yeah, it's quite a difficult question. I mean, measuring the results is a bit difficult. It's something that's quite difficult to do. But let's see whether we can actually come up with something like that.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the next presentation. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try and close this one. So it's about my computer. Sorry, just keep with me. Okay, I'm going to close this PowerPoint presentation. Let's see what I can. My computer is getting a bit slow. Emitting light sources differences. Beautiful. We got this right on. Seconds. Okay. I'll get that presentation. Almost very slowed up, and now we're going to share the screen again. Share screen. Share. I'm going to mute it, and we're going to go on to that particular question I've been asked about. Just have a look. We're going to go on view. Let's have a look. Slideshow. Beautiful. Okay. One of the things, so we are going to write a quite interesting article in order to, I mean, as a result of this presentation and other things, because there's a lot of confusion about that. I mean, about what plasma is and what electrical arcing is and how they operate. And they operate in completely different ways. There's quite confusion because people don't really know what, they don't really understand what plasma is. Say, for example, I'm going to get to it as quickly as possible right now. If you look at a piece of lightning, then you can actually look at the lightning and you don't get blinded by it. You don't need to use any eye protective device in order to make sure you're not blinded by the lightning, unless it actually goes through you. And so, but we're going to go into this quite in more detail as we go along. So the physics are completely different, and we're going to show you why and how. Say, if you have any electrical arc or electrophotoration devices, one thing that you'll notice is that we don't use any eyewear protection. And also, for many years now, electrical arcing was used onto the upper eyelids without any intraocular protection, whereas you would actually need it if you're using CO2 lasers or other lasers on the eyelid area. So that's another hint as what the differences between plasma and light producing devices like IPLs, lasers, etc. So the way they are operated is completely different. The protocols and the results are very different. Now, the light produced by plasma is very low intensity, and we're going to show you a demonstration about that. I think in one of the pictures. I mean, if you have seen or used these devices, then you'll understand better after, hopefully, better after this presentation. There's no effect. That light that is produced by the electrical arcing has no effect whatsoever on the human body. It hasn't got any effect on the skin. That light produced by the arcing has got no effect. I'm just repeating it. It's got no effect whatsoever onto the skin, onto the internal organs, onto the eyes. So you can the only effect you've got onto the eyes is you see the light produced by the arc. That's the only effect. The light source produced by devices which intend to use electromagnetic radiation in order to cause skin changes produce an intense radiation, and you can actually feel that radiation. Say, for example, if you have an IPL, or if you have a YAG laser, or any type of laser, or any IPL, when that laser hits your skin, the light hits your skin, you actually do feel the light, you feel the burn. Whereas it's not the same, and then you have to wear eye protection. It's not the same with the electrical arcing. The radiation is so intense that the light can even cause skin burns, and we'll see that, and it's quite natural that it does that. And skin changes, of course. Tattoo removal, it does that with tattoo removal, mold removal, skin tightening, etc. Now, again, we've seen this slide. Here, when you've got the spark from an electrocoagulation device, you're not actually using any eyewear, any protective eyewear in order to make sure that that light does not harm your eyes. So why is that? It's because that light source is very small. So that is what you find in the tattoo removal laser. So you've got the frosting effect. This is a Q-switch laser. The tattoo removal lasers are all Q-switch lasers. It's like the light is so intense for such a short period of time that it's like having an elastic band hitting your skin. These are the effect of the light onto the skin after tattoo removal, laser tattoo removal. Look, this is nothing new. People are not actually putting these things online, but this is a normal reaction to laser tattoo removal. And this is what you get every time after laser tattoo removal or laser tattoo, what do you call it? Attenuation. This is hypopigmentation after laser tattoo removal. Now, the light that is emitted from devices are not all the same. All devices, now, again, if the legislators say that plasma devices are the same as lasers, just tell, well, I mean, all devices emit some sort of light. The main difference is that light that is emitted by the device, does that light have any effect onto the skin? Say, for example, if you've got any device, they've got an LED light, so they've got a screen, and your mobile phone has got a screen that does emit light. But that light does not have any effect onto your skin, onto your eyesight as such. It doesn't have any, cannot harm your eyesight. And this is why you're actually able to use plasma devices or electrocoagulation devices onto the skin without using any eyewear, protective eyewear. The infrared light produced by higher temperature. Okay, another source of light. I mean, if any piece of device is producing infrared light, and this is produced by anything, by computers, TVs, anything that has got a source of heat. So the way the arcing works, or the lightning works, is that short circuit in the ionization of the device as an effect of that phenomenon produces light. But that light does not, the light itself does not cause any changes onto the skin or the human body. Well, I think we'll see a picture very soon. that illustrates that point. All devices emit. All devices. There's no device whatsoever that does not emit any electromagnetic radiation in one form or another. A radio frequency device, any device, a video camera, mobile phone, any device that heats up in one way or another, your computer, does emit light in the form of infrared radiation. But that doesn't mean that they are the same as an LED light that is actually of high intensity in order to cause skin changes, or an IPL, or a laser. So that light emitted by your computer or by your or electrical arcing or your mobile phone does not cause any changes into your skin. So not all radiation have any significant effects on the human body. So all devices emit electromagnetic radiations. This is a given. Hopefully you understand why that is. Say, for example, if you look at a device using an IR camera, an infrared camera, you'll find that the hottest devices are emitting some light, whereas the coldest are blue or emitting no light. But these lights has not any effect on the human body. So what are the high-intensity electromagnetic radiation emitting devices that cause some changes onto the skin? By using light. These are YAG lasers or any Q-switched laser, CO2 lasers, diode lasers, IPLs. Something that I've forgotten to put in there is LED light devices that use LED light at high intensity in order to cause some skin change. If you actually seen them and you felt the intensity of that light, then you actually understand. Any light emitting device whose light has some effect on the skin or to the body in general. When you're trying a CO2 laser, an IPL, or an LED light device, you're actually feeling it. An IPL, for instance, if you try on your skin, you actually feel the heat of that light. These intense light sources are required to be used by wearing protecting eyewear, as I'm quite sure you know. So if you use an IPL, lasers, by legislation in many countries, you've got to use protective eyewear. Not only you yourself, but also the customer has to. This category does not include other devices which emit light which has no effect on the human body. And electrical arcing is exactly that. Electrical arcing produces light again, but has no effect on the human body. See whether I can actually look at this. This is electrical arcing there. It's a very low intensity light. And it's not the light that causes that burn. It's the electricity. So the light, now plasma devices and their light emission, the light emitted by the arc is not causing any effect on the human body. As a proof of that, look at this. That person does not wear any intraocular protection, and the user does not wear any eyewear that protects from that source of light. And if you do it, this is in the treatment that's being done during daylight. If it's at night, and you compare this light source, this one, against a mobile phone, you'll find the mobile phone emits more light than this. It actually illuminates much more than this. The light emitted is merely a byproduct of the electrical spark, and this is fundamental. So you cannot confuse. The physics are completely different. Lightning is an electrical spark. The light produced is neither dangerous to the eyes nor the human body. I mean, if you have a look at it, I mean, all the videos online about electrical arcing for aesthetic purposes, no one is using protective eyewear to protect from that light source, because that light source is it's very, very, very small, even smaller than the light source, even lower intensity than a mobile phone. So no protective eyewear is required using coagulation units, and this is not as if we are only saying it. I mean, for so many years, electrocoagulation units have been used in the operating theatre. No surgeon has ever used any light protecting equipment in order to protect their own eyes against that light source from the electrical spark. And that is a matter of fact. The intensity of the light emitted by the arc is less that of a display of your computer. Look at this. I mean, this is another picture of so many treatments in here, and this is a very good. If you look, the light outside in the room is far more of high intensity than that small electrical arc. So devices that emit electromagnetic radiations, whose radiations cause skin change, are normally IPL lasers in light therapy. And as a proof, use them. I mean, I'm sure you have. You have to protect eyewear. You wouldn't actually go with a laser onto the eyelid area or close to it without the person using any protective eyewear, or intraocular eyewear. The difference between, this is plasma is mystery, so I do apologize, that should have actually been changed. That is the point. When you're using light sources, you can actually get the light itself causes the skin change. This is the point. Whereas in electrical arcing, that's not the point. The light emitted by plasma devices, this applies to electrocoagulation units, something that we talked about before, or electrical coagulation units, arcing units used in any other sector, including industrial and manufacturing. Electroradiation protect. Okay, now look, electroradiation protected eyewear is no use in aesthetics either. I mean, when you're using, because electrical arcing is also used for a number of applications in manufacturing. I'm not going to go into detail about that because it's not relevant. But no one uses any eyewear protection from that arcing because the intensity of that light is very low and it doesn't cause any possible hazards to your eyesight. When you look at a lightning, it's not as if you can actually go blind by looking at a piece of a lightning that goes before your eyes. That does not happen. If you get you're unlucky enough to get stricken by lightning, is a different thing. But if you just look at it, your eyes are going to be not affected by the light emitted by the lightning. No proof of any effect of any type by the light emitted by an electrical spark or any part of the human body can be provided. There's nothing, because it's actually it's common sense. If you look at the lightning or an electrical spark, it is not dangerous to the eyes. But whereas, try to look, and I would not recommend it directly into an IPL. That is very uncomfortable. It's not recommended at all. You wouldn't want to do that. The only effect that plasma devices have is the visual lighting stimulation because of the very way the electrical spark operates. So whenever there's an electrical spark, there is a piece of broad spectrum light being emitted. In plasma devices, the heat caused by, again, I'm going back to that. In plasma devices, the heat caused by the spark that does not cause the heat into the skin. It's actually the sorry, I just did something is wrong there in that sentence. It's actually the electricity, the heat caused by the electricity, because the spark, when it occurs, again, plasma ionization of the gases and all that, it's like a short circuit. So the heat is produced by electricity. The light emitted by the spark is a broadband spectrum electromagnetic energy, which is true, which has negligible effects onto the skin and the human body. We've proved it, to some extent, in a number of ways, but if you just use a common sense to look at any treatment, you'll understand. This is a protective eyewear. It's just not needed for plasma devices, whereas it's needed for IPLs and other light-emitting devices. This is something that doesn't look very nice as an intraocular eyewear, which is not needed, and it's quite uncomfortable, I'd say. And if you want to do, if you want to perform a CO2 laser eyelid tightening, you should need that. You should want that. It's actually something that is highly advisable that you have your customer to wear, and it's not very comfortable. Whereas you don't need it with electrical arcing. Going back. So, difference and effects. Those devices in which the light, the electromagnetic radiation per se, has effects onto the skin as color sensitive. So, another proof that, so what I'm trying to say in this sentence here is that another proof that these are very different, the way they operate is different, is that when we look at tattoo removal using plasma or radio frequency devices is completely colorblind, whereas it's color sensitive in tattoo removal. If you do tattoo removal using T-switch lasers, some colors will not go away. Then the skin type of the subject has to be taken into consideration before the treatment. Now, if you're using, what I'm trying to say here is that if you're using lasers, IPLs, and so on, you have to look at the skin type of the subject before you start the treatment. Because, say, for example, if you're familiar with electrical arcing, with lasers and so on, you'll find that you'll have to really take into consideration the way the skin type of the person. If the skin type 6 or 1 or 3, you have to adjust the intensity. Sometimes people prefer not to treat individuals of skin type 6 or 4 or 5. Then those devices which emit electromagnetic radiation but the light emitted has no effect on the human body whatsoever are colorblind, and this is plasma devices. And they can remove tattoos of any color and can be used on any skin type from 1 to 6 without any consideration of the type of skin type. 6 is fine. No problem. You don't look at it because the way they operate is completely different. It's not the light that causes the change into the skin. We're going to go hopefully in the tattoo removal section. When you use light in order to cause skin change, why is the darker skin types a bit more difficult and challenging? Because they've got a lot of melanin. Melanin absorbs a lot more light, and the effects on the skin are far higher than in lighter in skin type 1 or 2. So in plasma devices, you don't need to change the settings of the device because you're actually using it on skin type 6 or 1. You use actually the same thing. No manufacturer tells you to use different settings on different skin types because the way they operate is different. The physics are different. Now, again, I should have actually changed that, but this is, again, to give you that look. You're going to see this on the tattoo removal section. And here, so seeing this wavelength is quite effective on this type of colors on tattoos. This wavelength here, 1064, onto darker colors. And then the ones that we struggle always is the green ones, and you can actually do something with this wavelength, the 694 nanometers. Whereas it's not actually the case. Is this not the case with electrical active devices? Because they're completely colorblind. So, and look, this is what happens, and we're going to look at it. Look, when you're using light, you can target only certain types of colors, whereas it's not the case with electrical active devices. This is an example of tattoo removal treatment using light lasers. This is another thing that actually tells you, look, ruby laser, black, blue, or green, alexandrite, black, blue, or green, black and blue for the ag laser, and so on. It's not the case for electrical arcing devices. It is the heat that is caused by the electrical discharge, which causes the thermal effect into the skin. Hopefully that is quite clear. It is not the light, but it's the heat caused by the electrical discharge that causes the thermal effect into the skin, not the light of the spark. Electrocoagulation and electrocoagulation units are a subtype of radio frequency devices. So if you look at radio frequency devices, we'll see that electrocoagulation and electrocoagulation plasma devices are a subtype of them. The main difference is not the frequency, but two parameters: the operation voltage of the radio frequency devices that cause the arcing, and the shape of the electrode, which is normally an electrical arcing devices that are quite pointy. In devices that use electricity to induce heat onto the skin, with or without a spark, the frequency is ranging between 50 kilohertz and a few megahertz, and the voltages can change. The light emitted by the arcing device plasma or electrocoagulation is lower intensity than that of a mobile phone screen, and that is very important. That is very, very important. It has no effect onto the skin, it has no effect onto the eyesight, you don't need any protective eyewear when you're using electrical arcing devices. It has no effect whatsoever on any organ of the body, including the eyes. And just look at this. I mean, look at this. It's just a picture here. We're actually comparing a mobile phone screen with that. And if you have an electrical arcing device, try and do the experiment yourself and see which one is actually illuminating our room in the dark more. That small spark or the screen of your mobile phone. You'll find the screen is much more effective in helping you see things in the dark than that small spark. As a matter of fact. Try it. Then upper eyelid tightening, in upper eyelid tightening there's no need for any intraocular protection, as said before, because the light does not have any effect onto the human body, therefore pose no danger to the eyes, whereas it is necessary when using lasers. No frosting effects happen onto the skin, like you find in Q-switch lasers when you're using electrical arcing. It's just another proof that they work in completely different ways. The electrical arcing devices are very compact normally against the lasers, because lasers work and IPLs work differently, so they need other components which they're not needed in electrical arcing devices. And the broadband electromagnetic emission is too low intensity to cause any adverse effect on the human eye or body in general. This is the frosting the retinas after a Q-switch laser tattoo removal treatment. And how is the heat propagated into the skin using electrical arcing devices? The physics are the same as radio frequency devices. The electrical arc is an ionized gas, which is actually a short circuit, which works in a similar fashion as a superconductor. So actually, if you operate in a certain way, you can actually get similar effects with some radio frequency devices. The heat is produced by the microcurrent of the electrical arc, not the light. In other words, the electricity that propagates the heat, it's the electricity that propagates the heat, not the light. The light emitted by the electrical arc is only a byproduct of the spark. This is all it is. But people, because they don't actually understand especially some people who are meant to interpret legislation, they don't understand physics as much. They look at this and say, "Oh, this is we've got lights. This is a laser." It's not a laser. This is again just this is the way the laser works for tattoo removal, which is completely different to the way it works in this acoustic laser and the breathing after acoustic laser treatment. This is the swelling. We're going to see these things into the tattoo removal section, and this is something that you don't need to take into account when using plasma, because the heat onto the skin is actually is propagated using electricity, not light. Is the spark, is not the light. So you can actually treat skin type 6 or 1 in the same way. And this does not apply, this applies to lasers, it does not apply to electrical arcing, because arcing is the electricity that causes the heat, it's not the light. And this is a picture from one of our treatments that's actually gone after a few weeks, and we've got the before and after on our website. This is not the after, it's just during the healing progression. So we reached the end of this presentation. I'm going to go again back on the Hangouts. See that it stops here. And we're going to go into the Hangouts. So, and any questions? Any questions? Any questions?
I have a question.
Please.
How do we decipher what our device is, what technology our device is using?
I don't understand the question.
I don't, is it I can't remember the word, but there's a couple of similarities, and how do we determine which one ours is?
I think Christine may be asking, is electrofluoridation the same thing as plasma therapy? Can we use electrofluoridation devices to perform plasma therapy?
Okay, I think I understand the question. I'm going to answer it the same way that I've answered it before. I'm going to give you two answers. One is if the unit causes an electrical arc, it is not a laser. If it uses electricity to cause that heat propagated into the skin, it is not a laser. But again, you have to look at the user manual. When you buy a device, by law, you should only use it the way the manufacturer asks you to use it. So, say for example, some electrofulguration. Going back, electrofulguration, plasma, electrical arcing, electrical sparking mean the same thing. So, I call it plasma. Electrofulguration electrical arcing, electrical sparking is the same thing. It's the same phenomenon. But in practice, if you're using a device in your own business, make sure you're using devices that are appropriate for the use that you're making it for. There are electrical arcing devices that are used to ignite fire. You would not want to use that. You don't want to use that for skin therapy. Hopefully I've answered the question.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other question?
Yeah, I have one, Christine. I actually wrote it, I sent a message, but how does using LED after a treatment affect results? Like, I know after microneedling, I'll use LED directly after with, it doesn't affect the results in any negative way. And I have done it both ways, and I'm not really noticing any difference in results afterwards. So I just wondered what your opinion was on that.
Okay, I understand. I think I understand the question. If you can actually use LED lights in order to speed up the healing progression, the healing, I think that is the question. Is that correct?
No, I'm switching modalities completely here. LED done after electrofulguration session or a plasma fibroblast session. How does that affect results if you use LED directly after the treatment for clients?
Why would you want to use LED?
Sorry?
Why? What is the purpose of doing that?
What's the purpose of LED? Yeah, to bring down inflammation and to heal the skin.
Okay. Okay, I just, we haven't actually used it. We have no experience on that. Unless we've got experience, then we cannot suggest you do it, but I'm only thinking, and I could be wrong, when you're using plasma or similar treatments, you're causing a certain degree of burn to the skin. Using another light in order to do something else, a light that actually causes some skin changes, I don't think is a very good idea. I don't think. I could be completely wrong. I'm aware that there's some claims on LED lights that are for skin healing and wound healing. I'm aware of that. I believe it. Personally, I haven't actually seen the proof, but looking at it, I think it's more of a selling strategy. I could be wrong. Again, I haven't seen the evidence, and I'm not able to give you a very clear answer on that. But in my opinion, I would not go there.
Okay. Yeah, I just wondered because I had heard that your camp said no LED after the treatment, and I just wondered. So thank you for answering that.
Any other question?
I have a question. So if you're doing microneedling and you're offering microneedling and plasma skin tightening, do you recommend you should do one before the other, or does it matter as long as there's the required healing time in between each treatment?
I don't think I've actually haven't tried it. I haven't seen it done. I have not seen it done, but I don't think, due to the physics, you should not do it. I think it's a good idea. I think it's definitely a good idea. I'm not of the opinion of using LED lights as a way to try and speed up the recovery process, I don't think is a good idea. Again, I could be wrong. But the microneedling, because the microneedling uses a complete different concept and a completely different strategy in order to stimulate the collagen regeneration, I think it'd be a good idea. But you want to make sure that the healing progression is completely over.
Okay.
Any other question?
Yeah, I was wondering, what is the wait time for a second treatment on the same area?
Yes, this is a very common question. We've answered it, but that really depends. I'm only giving you an example with upper eyelid tightening. With that upper eyelid tightening, if you have still redness 4 weeks after the treatment, you would not want to touch the area. If it's still itchy 2 months after the treatment, don't touch it. If there still feels a bit tender, don't go there. If the client says, well, if you ask the client, well, how does the area feel? Good, no problem. I would go and wait for at least 6 weeks to 8 weeks. So in the region of between 6 weeks and 2 months. So I'll just try again to answer the question. So make sure that the area is completely healed. There's no any skin change due to the treatment that you carried out before carrying out another treatment on the same area.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
It did. Yes.
Any other question before we go on to the next presentation?
Oh, there's another presentation. I was going to ask one other quick question. You know, there are the Flexor and Accor and all these guys that are supposedly like gas-powered RF or gas-ignited RF. Have you heard of that? Well, I just wondered, I mean, is the spark that's generated from those machines any different from an electric ion spark? I don't understand how they can be so different, but they insist there.
Yes.
Like the
okay. Can I take a slight break? I like this question. Yes. It'll be 2 minutes. I'll take a slight break. I do apologize. I've got a bathroom appointment just a second. But I absolutely love this question. Please rephrase it while I'm away.
This guy's funny. He's cute. Are we the only people on here? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. All those people? God. Who is everybody? I recognize some people. Oh, hi.
Hi. I'm Jackie from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada.
Hi, Jackie. And you, the other live gal? What's your name? You've got the collar on, the cool jacket. She doesn't know what I'm talking about.
I am Bella.
Oh, hi, Bella.
Yes.
Where are you?
From Slovenia, Europe.
Ah, okay. Cool. I see Brenda's little picture.
I'm eating pizza. Don't tell anybody.
Okay. I won't. Secret safe.
And where are you from, Christine?
I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay. So I'm back from this meeting. So please again ask the question again, because I absolutely love that question, that type of question.
Okay, so there's all these so-called real plasma devices like Flexor and the Accor. Plasma Pen is saying theirs is real plasma, but they use gas, or I guess it's nitrogen to ignite the RF spark.
I love it.
It's less, and then
Look, I love this question.
it's like a bigger hole.
Look, I'm so enthusiastic. You know why they say that? Actually, I love this question. It's true. They use nitrogen, but guess what? What is the atmosphere made of? It's mostly, I think, if I remember well, over 90% is nitrogen. So they're actually telling the truth, and they're using gas, which is nitrogen, but it's in the atmosphere. That's the magic of confusing people in order to tell you they've got the real plasma and they use nitrogen. It is true. Our device uses nitrogen. It's so funny. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm just repeat it. In the atmosphere, we've got nitrogen. So, if I remember well, it's over 90%. I've got to look at the figures. Look, do a Google search. What is the atmosphere made of? Let's have a look. I mean, I'm quite interested. Let me do this right now. I'm gonna go on screen share. I absolutely love it. I mean, it actually share screen. Okay, full screen, share screen. Just a second. I'm loving this 2 bits. Let's go on to the nice Google thing. I'm gonna go online training. I'm gonna go on Google nitrogen. Okay, atmosphere. Then I've got nitrogen. Atmosphere. Then nitrogen. Nitrogen percentage. Oh, beautiful. Look at this. By volume, dry air contains 78% of nitrogen, 20% of oxygen. Oh, we've got also argon, the 0.04% of carbon dioxide. Interesting. So, I'm going to actually, I'll stop the screen share. So let's screen share. Where is it? I'm going to go into the Google Hangouts again. Do you understand?
Yeah, I mean, because Plexer has come to the U.S., they're applying for FDA approval. Their device is going to be like $20,000. I mean, I don't understand. I was like, isn't a spark a spark?
Yeah.
It just boggles my mind. And then there's this whole thing. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's not even true. Plasma, pen, blah blah blah," and it was nuts. So,
okay,
I understand.
okay, just a sec. Let me go back to it. No, now I've said in the previous presentation, this is a very competitive market. We've got a Plexer because we bought in 2013. I'm an electrical engineer. I've designed our device. I was like, okay, what's those special things? I opened it. And I thought, well, I've been conned. We still have the device. And it's there in a nice place, and it stays there. And it's not touched. It's so funny. The point is, the real plasma is such a competitive market that they have to try. Well, the problem about the United States of America is that you have FDA, that is a regulatory body, and in order for you to make money because you've got to spend some money in order to get the FDA approval. It's not as if you get FDA approval and everything is safe. It's not true. It's just you get a piece of paper. That's all you get. And you pay people and get a piece of paper. That's what happens. And obviously, you have to pay people who've got to produce paperwork and all that. And also, what people do, because it's a very competitive market, they have to try and confuse people, confuse the audience. And if you actually see it, most of the information is not even there online as an open source as we do, because we try to tell the truth. Actually, as much as possible, we're a bit biased still. But we say that we are biased, but as they actually not even mention it, we are biased, we want to sell our product. So basically, as you've seen as an example as the nitrogen, it's another trick This is true. They're not telling a lie. They're using nitrogen because the atmosphere is made by nitrogen. As you see, according to Google, 78% is made by nitrogen. So it's true. But it actually causes confusion. So you say, oh, it's true plasma. The other ones is not. They don't use gases. That is what they're doing.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In different sources that the treatment actually stimulates collagen through injury, which we know certain types of collagen are stimulated that way. However, the teachings of some of the companies are kind of heavily relying on the term collagen inducing, meaning that you're going to get firmer, tighter skin just because of what's going to happen within the next 6 months. I'm not so sure that that's what we're looking at here, correct? Does that make sense?
I don't understand the question. Please repeat.
Are we inducing collagen at the same time doing this therapy?
Yes, indeed. The collagen stimulation is there. You can do it in many ways. I'll be to the point. I mean, when you cause an injury, somehow you're causing collagen stimulation if you're producing that injury in a good way. With plasma, electrical arcing, electrophobration, true plasma, fake plasma, and everything you want to call it, electrical arcing, electrical sparking, whatever you want to call it. Again, it's the wording. But for that thing, you're causing a slight wound, as I said before, wound, and a slight burn at the same time, which both cause collagen stimulation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Okay, shall we go to the next slide? Sure. Yes? So we're going to go to the next slide.
Yes.
Show. Okay, beautiful. Okay. We're going to go to the next slide show right now. The next one is going to be on, I'm going to change that. We're going to go in there, and what we're going to do is screen share again. Screen share, your screen, share. And okay, we're going to go in there. Beautiful. Now, this is a tattoo removal slideshow. So what we're going to go into view slideshow. So tattoo removal. We're going to. So how many treatments are required to remove a tattoo? Now, how long is a piece of string? So again, you either use plasma or you use something else. It's quite a difficult question to answer. The number of sessions that you require in order to, and then, as we'll see, you can actually remove the tattoos. You can only fade them. Are dependent on the type of pigments, the depth of the pigments, in case of lasers, on the color of the tattoo, which is not the case with plasma devices. Whether the tattoos are multi-layered, etc. And we'll look at a slide in particular on that particular point. The reality is that most tattoos will never be removed completely. And for complete removal, you would need to leave a scar in most cases. So what you see advertised, and please, if you have more experience than me in this particular thing, because every tattoo that I've seen removed has left a scar or a mark. So a seamless removal is so rare that the only one that I've seen is the eyebrows removal. The permanent makeup on the eyebrows removal. I've seen personally. If you've seen others, please let me know. In most cases, tattoos can only be attenuated and never completely removed, unless a scar is left. The exception is permanent makeup. The reason for permanent makeup to be quite a good candidate for seamless removal is because the pigments are quite good. And also the other technique is surgery. So with surgery, then you're going to leave a scar due to the cuts that you have induced. So in the real world, most tattoos can only be attenuated and not removed. Most tattoos cannot be seamlessly removed as advertised. And therefore, what happens in reality is that when people want to have a tattoo removed or they're not happy about a tattoo, they have it attenuated using lasers or other techniques. And then they have another tattoo made on top of it. And this is the reality. So what happens is that they go and have a laser tattoo removal session, or a number of them, and they realize that it is very painful. The healing progression is a bit of a pain in the neck. And they decide, okay, I've had enough. What we're going to do is we're going to put another tattoo on top, so I'm not going to go through again another laser treatment. And this is what is called as a cover-up tattoo. So you have a tattoo on another tattoo. So what you normally do is you just try to attenuate the previous tattoo using lasers or other techniques, including plasma, and then bang, you put another tattoo on top. This is what happens in reality. So large tattoos can be attenuated but never completely removed, and then they're covered up using other tattoos. And this is an example. So you've got a tattoo there has been attenuated using lasers, bang, you put something on top so you cannot see the old image. This is another example in there. So you find the attenuation there. So how can tattoo be removed or attenuated? So there are a number of ways. The lasers are not the only ways, but they're the fancy way. There's also PCA, which is not always very reliable because it's more likely to leave scars. There's surgery, so nobody actually talks about surgery. It's one of the best ways because in many cases you can get rid of tattoos quite quickly in one session. You do have a scar, but actually you do get a scar almost every time. So RF voltaic arcing, with or without salation or osmosis. Salabration, which is quite a very old-fashioned ones to attenuate. Tattoos, mechanical scrubbing, which is not very well, it's not very used. And the only guarantee of complete removal with minimal scarring is surgery. That is a surprise. Because the scar is normally a line where that cut was made and the suture was placed. Tattoo removal using lasers, as we've seen before, that you can attenuate certain colors and not others. Plasma tattoo removal. The results of tattoo removal are fading. You can actually use osmosis or not. It depends on how you want to do it. First, you actually do an epidermal layer removal using plasma, and then you access the pigments and do a second ablation of the pigments once you've done that. And then if you want, then you apply salt after that, and you can apply in different ways. And then going again, what that is wrong, we should have changed it, but this is a schematic showing that again I've seen before the light inside the skin. Again, the laser tattoo removal, where the light goes inside the skin, it scatters to some extent the ink, and then the ink is then reabsorbed by the body. But that doesn't happen completely. It happens to some extent. Tattoos are previous now about the plasma treatment. Tattoos that are previously treated with lasers are harder to fade, and it shouldn't. They're quite so. We normally say if they've been treated with lasers, we're not going to touch them. They're more difficult to treat. Once the epidermal layer is removed, the spraying process using plasma is repeated to break down the color pigments. The area is cleaned using cotton, or a cotton pad every time the carbon residues are formed due to the arcing. Then we apply salt onto the tattoo to induce osmosis. Now, this is a very brief presentation on that, but this is a laser tattoo removal. You see the hypopigmented area, an hypopigmented area after lasers. Again, this is strong, I should have changed it. Then again, we've seen this slide again. So the plasma and tattoo removal advantages versus lasers. The advantage is that it's relatively new to the tattoo removal industry. It's far more effective than any laser on the market, including the most expensive, including the picosecond lasers and so on. And they treat multicolored tattoos, unlike lasers, and they're completely colorblind. So you don't have the problem of being able to fade colors instead of others. Because the physics are completely different, you're actually able to fade all colors irrespective of the type of the color you've got. Then plasma is completely colorblind, as I've mentioned, and it's quite revolutionary versus lasers. Now, and also does not cause any swelling, which we actually see in lasers. Another the disadvantage is that it's not as fancy as laser treatments. It takes longer to a session takes longer, it's more involved. You've got to use salt if you want to cause osmosis and you want to treat the area faster. The area is more prone to infection than with lasers. Then you've got the classic putting salt on a wound, which is not a nice phrase in English. So it's got advantages and disadvantages. This is a laser tattoo removal. So a few days after you get the classic swelling of the area. We've seen this picture before. And another disadvantage of plasma is that leave an open wound, so you're more likely to get, as well as a burn as you get in plasma, but you're more likely to get an infection than you would be otherwise using lasers. Lasers are less likely to cause infections because you don't actually cause an open wound in most cases, and sometimes if if you cause a bit of bleeding using lasers, then you can also there is a certain likelihood of an infection to take place, bacterial infection. This is a picture showing the area treated and the classic blisters after, and the difference before and after, which is minimal. Bleeding after laser tattoo removal, the scattering of the pigments that we've seen before, the way light gets into the skin, the fact that, again, when you're using lasers, the skin type is very important because light is absorbed very intensely by dark skin colors, so sometimes people don't actually use lasers on skin types 4, 5, or 6. And again, as we've seen before, classic blisters after laser treatment, blister and after, before, after one treatment, the blisters in between. And you can find this on our website, and this is the Kirby Desai table. It's normally used for lasers because lasers have been historically heavily advertised for that, but for laser tattoo removal. So the higher the points, say for example on skin type 6, you've got high points because you've got this. Actually, this is used in order to give you a measurement of how many sessions you've got to carry out in order to cause to remove a tattoo or fade a tattoo. As you've seen, the higher the points here. So for example, skin type 6 is higher, on the hands and feet are higher. If the pigments are quite intense, higher points. If the double layer, you get higher points. So the higher the points, the more the sessions you require in order to get good fading. And as you've seen, the more colors, the more sessions you require. And this has been tailor-made for lasers, because lasers have been used more in tattoo removal than plasma so far. And this gives you an idea of how difficult and how many sessions are required in order to cause not the removal but actual fading of the tattoos, which is sometimes quite difficult. It does require a number of sessions, and especially lasers. If you expose your skin to lasers too many times, it doesn't have the effects on your skin. These are the effects of hyperpigmentation, or not electrofoldation, on lasers tattoo removal. And this is another slide, and again, this is after one of our treatments. This is only a few weeks after, I think 2 weeks or 10 days after. Then the area was completely smoothed out. And you find the picture on our website. You've seen these pictures before, and you'll find them on our website. It's another picture that shows you how, again, the colors are quite important in laser tattoo removal, because different colors have got different types of effects on this. I mean, you can only fade certain types of tattoos using lasers, which is not the case using plasma. Again, plasma is completely colorblind. And that's the end of the last presentation. And we're going to go again, and so look, we're going to stop sharing that, and we're back. So the last questions. Any questions?
So when you do the tattoo removal, you're saying you can do it with the salt or without the salt, but the salt, it has a better effect, quicker effect.
Yes, indeed. We're going to make more information available on that. I think more information is available on voltaicplasma.com, but we're going to make a slideshow about a bit more about tattoo removal using plasma. The salt has the effect of inducing osmosis, which has the effect of fading the tattoo much more quickly, because you draw the pigments from the dermis to the surface of the skin. And as you may know, tattoos is actually ink that's been placed inside the dermis, and it's a bit difficult to remove tattoos without even in scarring, because it's actually inside the dermis. And doing it out is quite difficult using any means. So the osmosis has got the effect of accelerating that process of removal, because it tries to draw the broken pigments onto the surface of the skin. That has got the effect of osmosis. And we're going to make more information available on osmosis later on. Hopefully I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
Can you use your pen to treat other irregularities on the skin, such as growths, tags, telangiectasia, etc.?
Okay. Our device can be used. For benign skin lesion removal, or skin imperfections. You can remove scars and so on. Anything that is used for aesthetic purposes only. So you remove moles, skin tags, these sort of things. Hopefully I've answered your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other question? Any other question? Okay, so this is the end of the, if we don't have any other question, this is the end of this nice session. We very much thank you.
I'll ask a question.
Okay.
What are we doing next class? What topics will we be covering?
Okay, if you want, you can actually send us whatever you'd like us to cover. and we'll work on it. We'll actually cover whatever topics you'd like us to cover. We're going to put online this time what we're going to cover in the next class in advance. So if you have any particular topics that you'd like us to cover, we'll actually do that. So, but we're going to put that online later on. I think we're going to talk, from memory, because we've got someone working on the new presentations. I think we're going to talk about keloids. I remember the keloids and other things. I can't quite remember. Keloids I remember because I've actually remember exactly the order to put a presentation in place for keloids. But once again, I can't remember exactly the topics that we're going to cover. If you have any question, any particular topic you would like us to cover, please let us know.
I have another question. So when we do these topics and we're taking these sessions online, is there anything that we can get as far as a certificate or a piece of information that we can use for our clients if this is the training that we're using? Because I don't have a lot of faith in some of the other training programs that I've looked into that cost thousands of dollars, and I just want to be able to have something to show that, you know, I'm learning and I know what I'm doing, and I'm, you know, I just didn't know about that.
We don't have it ready yet, but what we'll try and do, we'll build an online questionnaire on whatever we talked about this session. So you have to answer the questions about whatever we talked about this particular session, and then if you pass the test, you're going to get your test, the certificate online directly after you pass it. So we're going to send you an email with that link.
That you have on your website as well. So, and I don't know what happens to them when you submit them. They just, you have test questions on your website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear your question. So can you repeat the question again?
So what I was wondering is, when we're doing these webinars, and also I've taken those tests and I submit them, but nothing, you know, they just disappear. So I didn't know if there was something to prove or to show that the information that I'm getting is something that I can use to express to my clients that I am training and I have trained, just because I don't have a certificate from, you know, a 2-day course that I went to see.
Okay. Let's see. Have you taken the test today?
No, not today. This was about, probably about, I'd say a month ago was the last time I took a test.
Beautiful. So what has happened a month ago, we just fixed the online tests.
Okay.
If you take the tests again, at the end of the test, you'll find the certificate. You can download the certificate.
Oh, perfect.
And what we're
Excellent.
going to do, we're going to build the tests on this particular session, whatever we call in this session, and we're going to send everyone the video of whatever we talked about today, and also the link to the online tests about this particular session. So after you've taken it, then you should be able to download the training certificate, and that's going to happen all throughout the course. And then you can actually keep taking. If you don't want to take the course anymore, just cancel subscription. We're happy with that. And then if you want to take it again, just rejoin. We're quite open.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Any other question?
I don't have a question, but I would like to say something. I've been following you online with all of your videos, everything that you put online, and I'm so impressed and I'm so grateful that you've spent so much time putting out information for those of us interested in this topic. And I just really want to say I really appreciate all that time that you've put into all of this.
Thank you. We're not a charity. The reason why we've decided to go on in this direction and invest in this is because no one is actually doing it, and it's wrong. in our opinion. And the online training is the way of the future in many ways. The face-to-face training, sort of hands-on, in the long run, is not going to be sustainable. We believe that. We believe very strongly that the best and only sustainable way in order to make an impact, especially in order to make a successful business that is going to last and it's going to grow in the future, is actually, we have grown, thank God, and it's actually working out. It's unfortunately, it's not something that you actually put your time in here right now and you're going to get the investment immediately back. It's going to take a year or even longer, but it does work because no one else is doing it. Everyone else is actually looking at short term, then a quick buck. So doing it face to face, which is more effective at the moment, it's more effective to getting sales at the moment. It's to say, when you do a face-to-face, then people have faith in you, and then you do the tricks of the nitrogen or whatever. I call the various tricks that you actually try to put in place and say there's real plasma, fake plasma, everything else is fake, with the real, the others are fake. But then what we find is that over this past few years, the Plexer is out of the UK. It's completely out because of the competition. One of the reasons, thank goodness, we're quite proud of that. I mean, I'm doing a bit bad there. But I mean, given what happened in 2014, I'm quite happy with that. Especially, I'm a bit bad. I shouldn't actually say these things, but actually feel very strongly. But joke aside, the way of the future is online. And the only way we can actually train and give all the information that is actually truthful and helping people is online. Say, for example, tattoo removal. You have to know a lot, and you can actually do it within 2 days, 3 days, hands-on. And it's actually not the only way and the best way in order to actually learn how to use these devices properly for each treatment is by doing the course, using videos, using materials and so on. That, say for example, eyelid tightening, we actually review the information online, you watch the videos, you do your treatments, you find the results and so on, and then you become an expert at that. And then you move on to another thing, tattoo removal, whatever. This particular treatment, plasma treatments, have got so many applications, you cannot go over them in 2 days. Of course, does not work that way. In practice, it does not work that way. So the best way to make it happen is just doing it little by little, absorb all the information. This is why we've got so many hours of online training out there, because it actually is the best way in order to provide a real impactful, meaningful information that is going to help the therapists in order to teach them, in order to learn how to use these devices in each particular application.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
I do have one last question. I was wondering, does the pattern of the formation of the dots, depending on which one is used, maximize the skin tightening? Because I keep seeing this one, I don't know what company it is, and it has they do 5 dots, or 4 dots in every, like a square, and then they finish it with a middle dot. And they claim that this will shrink the skin even more. It's their, one of their selling points. And I wondered, what would you say about that? Is there such a thing as that pattern being most maximizing in the skin tightening, or I've heard of there's different applications I'm seeing and I'm hearing about. Which one in your experience may work the best or is the best for skin tightening?
I don't want to criticize that particular one. What people are trying to do, in my view, is trying to find unique things in order to, again, shift your attention, so in order to get a sale. And this one actually, it's not a bad way of doing it because at least you're teaching something. At least you're trying to teach something. It's not a bad thing per se. What we find, I mean, what I like is the putting the spots randomly in a random fashion. The way that I've seen it taught, and I think is good, is by trying to put the dots in triangles. And the only point of doing that is just so that you can actually place them randomly. I strongly believe that's the best way forward. Just try to place them randomly and try to find your own techniques in order to do so. Always don't place them in line. Don't so you cannot see a pattern. Just put them randomly. I think that's the best way forward. And the strategy that people have found is just put them in sort of the triangle fashion. So that is one of the way that people have taught, especially in 2010, 2011, 2012 in Italy. And I think it's a good way of teaching it. So the purpose of that is so that you're going to place the dots randomly.
Okay, so place them randomly. Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
And I wondered, I see this too, where if there's a wrinkle, a long wrinkle, they place it on the exterior of that long wrinkle. They don't place it on the inside. Let's say for the smiley lines. What do you think about that?
Exactly right. Well, I wouldn't say right. It's exactly what I believe. We've seen videos. I think maybe they're not offline. People put the dots inside the wrinkle, and that has caused so many problems. Basically, the wrinkles becoming even more wrinkles. And then instead of a wrinkle, you get a scar, an atrophic scar, which I've actually talked about a number of times in how not to use plasma devices and so on. And then if you have bad pictures, please send them over. We're going to use it on our online material. Our users, we only got one case of a user, one of our users, which wasn't a client as such, was a distributor, making a mistake. But it was because they didn't actually take the online training tests. Because if you do, then you cannot make that mistake. So you actually have that piece of information and you can prove it. So never place the spots inside the lines or inside the atrophic scars, always between and randomly, in order to cause that skin tightening between the lines, so the lines will appear less deep.
Okay, and you're going to cover scars next class, yes?
If you want, by all means, we'll do it. Please send us. Please send us emails. Anyone, please do send us emails about what you want us to cover in detail and less detail. Give us whatever you want us to cover, and we'll build the content in order to make you happy.
Great, because I keep seeing these scars where they're placing the dots in the exterior of the scar, and to me that means you're spreading it out further. I would think you would place them in the inside to shrink it up, the scar, right? The size. And we could talk about that next month if you prefer. But that's, as far as formation of the dots, I have noticed that some practitioners are placing them on the outside of the scar, which to me is spreading it out more instead of on the inside of the scar, which would, the idea is to shrink the scar, I would think, but just a thought.
Well, if they're atrophic scars, we always advise to place them outside, at the borders and outside, in order to cause the pulling effect. If they're hypertrophic scars, we advise to spray the hypertrophic scar and flatten it against the skin.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? So if we don't have any other questions, we very much thank you for your time. This is going to be sent, I've tried to record this video in the best possible way, hopefully it's worked. We're going to send it to whoever hasn't made it today, because not everyone could make it. We've got 20 participants into the Golden Online training, and only a handful are present today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So only a quarter of people are busy. It's a Sunday after all, and we've got people from the world over. So the time may not be convenient to everyone. So we're going to put it online for them to watch, and then we're going to send you the links to the tests, the online tests. At the end of them, you should be able to download the certificate. If you don't, let me know. You can use Skype to get in touch with me, use WhatsApp, you use emails. Please try to use WhatsApp or Skype. I love WhatsApp. So any question, please try to use WhatsApp if you can, email or Skype. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you
Thanks.
hopefully next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.